Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Straight into it. I've got the Coupe here, supercharged Godzilla at this end, newly installed Raceworks fuel cell at that end, and a whole bunch of parts to join the two together and do a few other jobs, plumb the supercharger, plumb the oil system, whole lot of stuff. So straight into that. So I'm trying to use my tripod a little bit more and the other camera on my phone so I get a little bit better quality. I'm not sure how I feel about this. We'll see how we go. Let me know. This weekend was supposed to be all about the Coupe, and then some stuff happened with the F700 and I got really keen with that, and I spent yesterday working on that. I got sidetracked completely. I've already recorded that video. That'll be after this video. But I need to get this job done on the Coupe anyway. So all these parts behind me, like I said, it's to join the fuel cell to the Godzilla, to the engine. It's all fuel system stuff pretty much. I've got a tank for the supercharger. I've got these are all fittings for the supercharger end. This is hose. These are some very cool custom little bits I'll show you in a minute. That's a battery box. Everything else is fittings and hose. So there's a lot to go into the car. So I'm gonna open up some of this stuff and get the car up in the air. Although I might start at the supercharger end first and get that plumbing done. But yeah, hopefully this evening and tomorrow I can get everything plumbed on this car. I'd like to get it in place, measured, cut, installed. I still have to organize clamps, joiners for the hoses under the car, a couple other bits and pieces, fuel filter holder, all sorts of things. I'll go through that as I go, but I want to get most of it sorted out this weekend. So we'll get the car up in the air, open up some of these boxes and get straight into it. And I'll work on talking to the camera properly. So I'm going to start with the supercharger plumbing. So that's from the intercooler that's internal in the supercharger down to the reservoir and then down to the pump that's already fitted under the guard that was in a previous video. So I want to put -12 hoses on there. So that's quite a large hose. The supercharger comes from the factory with plastic barbed fittings, so you can just push on hoses, basically like a heater hose. I want a whole lot better than that. I want AN fittings on everything. Now, Whipple do sell an AN fitting to replace those barbs. You can buy them off their website. They're relatively cheap. What isn't cheap is the shipping. Those fittings, those little fittings, are $30 US each. For the 4 fittings to be shipped to Australia, $340 US on the only shipping option. I put a story on my Instagram asking if anyone can help in the States with buying some and shipping them to me direct without having to pay a ridiculous shipping cost. And no one could come up with anything. So I spoke to my good friend Trav at Hammond Engineering. I've actually had these sitting on the shelf or on the bench for probably 2 months now. I've been putting this off, and I've only just opened them for the first time. So I'm pretty keen to show you guys this. So I put my story up asking if anyone can help with shipping the parts over. Trav said, I can make you those. Not a problem, I can do that for you. So he did. I took them up on the offer. Now that's the factory fitting. It's just a barbed fitting, O-ring, this bit here. This little groove is where the middle clamp holds them in place. So I sent that to Trav and I said, -12 AN please, and 2 short ones and 1 slightly longer one. That'll make sense later. But I haven't actually looked at these yet. These are the first time I've seen these. So again, that's the original fitting. Get some focus in there. And these are the two fittings that Trav has come up with. These are fantastic. These are exactly what I was after. That saved me quite a bit of money, and it was quick, and they're perfect. So again, that's Hammond Engineering in Victoria. That's Trav. Now, some of you may remember Trav has been mentioned before. You can't really see it there, but that big, beautiful billet throttle body adapter, that also came from Trav. That was another one of his, I can make that. And he did. So I've got a few more bits from Hammond Engineering on the car now, and I think there's going to be more as well. So if you're in Victoria or anywhere in Australia and you need something a little bit custom made, he does a few Barra parts on that as well. As he's got a F350 with a Barra turbo in it. But if you need something made up, talk to Trav. I'll put his link in the description, so have a look at that. Let's get the supercharger plumbed. I think the best way to go about this, because I'm doing the whole car basically, is go through what I've got here, get the fittings that I need, work out where the fittings go. So fuel rail fittings, supercharger fittings, all the plumbing for the supercharger. I've put that main box over there out of the way. This is the reservoir for the supercharger. This is a battery box for the boot. So I'm going to separate what I need for what I'm doing. So I'm going to do supercharger and fuel rails. So I'll work out all those fittings, and then I'll start working out routing for hoses and what I need to do. So I've got a box here of bracketry pulleys, idlers for the supercharger. So I'll probably put that in place as well, so I can work out the fuel rail plumbing as that all goes behind there. So there's a bit to it, but I think first step will be separating everything and working what I actually got. One of the hardest parts for me with doing plumbing, running hoses and that. With all my other setups with the turbos and everything, I kept changing things because I was relocating things. And it didn't really matter. If I didn't like it, I'd just change it. This one, I only really want to do it once. And I want to keep the aesthetics really good on this car. I want it to look nice. And so I'm trying to work out where to place things where it's going to look good in the future when everything's painted and everything's in there. I just want it to look nice when you look in the engine bay. I'm sick of having a messy engine bay. So at the moment, I'm working out the plumbing for the supercharger. I've got these two hoses each side. That's the hot water out, the cold water in. It's got to go down into a Y block and then into a bulkhead fitting. So at the moment, the nicest way I can come up with plumbing that or routing those hoses is through a Y block and a bunch of fittings. I'm not usually a huge fan of having something like that. I just want to keep everything minimalistic, I guess, make it nice and tidy and sleek. I don't really have an option here. So I've spent the last pretty much hour trying to work out the exact right place to put these holes through the center guard for these bulkhead fittings, because I don't want to do that twice. I don't want to have to fix holes. This is a one-off job. I think I've got it right. Things I've got to take into account is I've got 2-12 hoses coming down through here. I want to make that look tidy and not take over the engine bay. I've got to put a shroud on there with, I'm going with probably a Maradyne fan. If anyone's got hookups to Maradyne fans, that's what I'll be going with. So I've Googled the measurements, what I've got to work with, clearances between the radiator, the engine, all those things I've got to take into account. So these hoses on this side, they've got to come down under the throttle body, across the front of the engine down there, and I don't want that to be a standout thing when you look in the engine bay. I pretty much just want the supercharger, the valve covers and everything to be what your focus goes on, not random hoses everywhere. So I'm trying to keep it nice and tidy. I think I've got it sorted. I'm going to drill some holes and I'm going to hope they're in the right place, because I'm not changing this one again. But that's part of why this thing takes so long, is I'm trying to put a lot of thought into it this time. I struggle with that, but let's cut some holes. I've got the two bulkhead fittings in place. That worked out really well. I'm just using push lock hose in here, so it'll be push on like these fittings, pretty much just because of the pump that's in here. So I've almost finished under here. These are fairly straightforward. I originally had this hose coming up around here, a straight hose, but I'm kind of liking how tidy this is. Now I need a 90 on there instead of 45, but otherwise that part's done. I managed to find a 90-degree fitting for up the top there, so everything here is tied in now. This is the hot water from the supercharger coming in through the pump, back out into the cooler at the front of the car, back in, down, and up into the supercharger. So everything's kind of loose in there. It's all finger tight at the moment, but that's sorted, that's done. I'll replace these bolts and that later, but that's all the hoses and fittings sorted for under here. now that I've got the bulkhead fittings in place, the Y blocks, I can start doing the hoses to the supercharger from the Y blocks. But the other thing I have to have in place first before I do that is I've got to fit this. So this is a coolant expansion tank or a reservoir. This is also where you fill the supercharger. This is a Mishimoto one. I actually found this. I was looking for something tidy to put in the car without having one made. There's not much out there, but I saw this. There's a guy on Instagram I follow. He's got a C30 tow truck in the States, slammed on bags, big wheels, cool as hell. And he's got an LSA in it, and he's got one of these tanks, and I spotted that, and I hit him up for the part number. This has -10 ports, and I'm running -12 hoses, as I've mentioned. So I picked up a couple of adapters to go from 10 to 12. So I'll put those in the tank, and then I've got to work out the bracket to fit this. I'm trying to make it look tidy. It's probably not going to be as nice as I'd like, but I'll see what I can do. But at the moment it's got some nuts welded on the back there that I can put into the inner guard. But I've got to modify this a little bit. So this is going to be interesting. I'll see how I go. It looks like there's a lot going on there with the bulkhead fittings going into the 45s and the 2 Y blocks. But in the overall scheme of things, I don't think it's too bad. And when I get the radiator shroud in there with the fan and all the hoses and bits and pieces, air box, I think it'll work out okay. But back to the coolant reservoir there. That's all in place. I'm happy with that. That's nice and solid. So again, that's the hot water out of the supercharger. That's the cold water in. So the hot water is going to come out of the supercharger, go into the reservoir from this side, and then down to the Y block. That's the hot water one. Same on that side, hot water around, under, and into that Y block. That one's the 2 cold ones. So that fitting is fine, that 45 fitting is fine, that 45 fitting is fine, but that hose has got to come down and across the hair. So it's a bit hard to tell there, but if I put a 90 there, that'll go straight to that pretty much. So the hose will come down and then up into that 45. This one here, another 90-degree fitting will go straight down to that Y block down there. That actually lines up really well. So I need a 60-degree fitting for that to come back, a 90 there, and 90 there, and I think a 45 on this one to come up this way a little bit, and that'll line up nicely up in here. Ideally I'd wait until I've got the shroud and the fan in place to do this, but the hose I'm using, it's the cutter hose. It's the rubber hose with a nylon braid. It's the more inexpensive hose. And I think I'll be pretty safe if I do that. And I just want to get some hoses in there. So I'm going to do that. And then I'll look at the front bridge between the 2 fuel rails under the throttle body. And then I might do the oil hoses underneath. But let's make some hoses. This one worked out quite nicely. Clearance around the idler. I've just got the belt wrapped around here. It's too long for the setup at the moment because I haven't got the power steering pump down there. So this belt usually goes down through here. But I've got clearance both sides. Doesn't look like a huge amount, but there's plenty down there for the belt and the idler. And I've left them reasonably long, I'll put proper clamps on there and tie them out of the way. But when I've got the shroud and the fan in place, then I can work out exactly where these need to go, but they'll be tucked out of the way. But I'm quite happy with that. I'll try and make them all match when it's together. So tucked away in there is the feed from the oil pump. So this is the last oil line coming around up into the oil cooler. I've left this big bow in here, this big kick out, to get around the factory power steering pump. I don't actually have one, so I probably shouldn't have made this line just yet. But I looked up a lot of images on Google to see where the pulley sits and the pump sits, and I should have enough clearance around here. I've also got tucked away up in there is the lower radiator hose. It'll have to come down somewhere across the front of the engine and up into the other side of the radiator. So there's a bit going on there, but that's all the oil hoses done. Really need to clean that. Can't really see much up there with the light. Back out in the shed. Spent this morning having a bit of a clean up my workbench, sorting out some fittings, working out what else I've forgotten. Dropped the fuel cell and cut the boot floor, the sheet for the boot floor. We'll have a look at that in a minute. I'm kind of covered in crap. But we'll have a quick look at the fuel cell. So I dropped this off at Mitch's place and he welded on these brackets on the side. I drilled the holes. I cut the feet off as well, so that now hangs underneath the boot floor and everything here up is inside, but you'll see that in a sec. But big thanks to Mitch for sorting that for me while I was away. I'll clean that up and paint everything once I've finalised everything. I'm probably going to have the filler neck welded on the side here, I think. I've tried various fittings and try and get something in there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get that to work, and I'm not sure I want the pipe coming across here. So yeah, I started sorting out the fittings this morning, realised I've forgotten a couple. I need some more of these, but I'll jack this back up under the car, put it in there, bolt that in, drop the car down, and we'll have a look at what's going on up there. I'm short a couple of fittings. I've changed my mind on a few things a few times now, and I've finally settled what I'm doing with that. So I'll have a quick look. I've got the fuel cell in place. That's sitting in there quite nicely. I've got it down to 100 mil above the boot floor. That panel is just sitting there loosely. It'll have perimeter bolts like a factory fuel tank, nothing around here. But the fittings I've got an ORB fitting to an AN fitting, and then I had 90 on top of that. That makes that fitting quite high, and those fittings, if I can focus, are a fair bit lower. Originally, when I thought of these fittings, when I ordered these fittings, I had the fuel cell sitting in the boot. It was right up here, and everything worked out quite nicely. Now that I've dropped this down, I need to change what I'm doing. So those fittings are good, again with the focus. But these, I'm going to take these out and put an ORB straight to a 90, and then a straight hose end over to that. So this one will come around into here. This one will come back and into this fitting here, and I'll have the same here, an ORB into a 90, coming across here slightly, going around the fuel sender unit and straight into that. And I'll patch that hole. I had that fitting, these fittings here, but that was a little bit too close to have a nice bend into this with the PTFE fitting. And my pipe bender for the hard line doesn't do a nice enough job to make that out of hard line. I might do that later, but for now I'm sticking with that. So these hard lines aren't very pretty, sorry, but they're up there. The fitting closest to us is the feed line. The one over this side is the return line. So I've got them as close as I can get to the contours of the floor without contacting the floor. The focus won't be too good under here, sorry. I've still got a bit of floor work to do here, right clearance for this bolt. We've got those going into, from the hard line to the PTFE hose, the Teflon hose. So it's the feed line going into the filter. I had to make a bit of a bracket there to get the filter where I wanted it. The two front bolts here, that's where the old filter used to sit. I've moved it back, dropped it down a little and angled it so these hoses can clear under the cross member. They're touching at the moment, but I haven't put the brackets in or anything to mount it there. The same up here. So this is the return line. I've got that hanging loose at the moment. I'm going to put another section here. I know it's better to have less joints in all the hoses, but I have a habit of changing things, and there is something else I might add into this line later on. So I'm keeping my options open with that. This focus is terrible. The lighting under here is below average, sorry. I think it's time I upgraded to a proper camera instead of using my phone for everything. If anyone's got any suggestions, please let me know. All the plumbing in the engine bay, except for breathers on the valve covers, everything is done. And the radiator hoses, that's another job. I have to run a PCV. The only emissions control I need to run on this car is the PCV. This is a December 73 car, so it comes within the first set of ADRs, but I require a PCV. I'm not going to go into catch cans or anything like that at the moment. For registration engineering purposes, this is the requirement that I need to run, so I need to sort those. That'll be soon. All the supercharger plumbing is sorted, the oiling system's sorted, and the fuel system's sorted. I've got the feed coming up the firewall into this rail, under the front of the supercharger, down this rail, through the regulator, and back out the other side. That's really straightforward. We've got the dash 12 fittings for the supercharger. I've still got to get clamps for that and tidy that up, work out where they're going to go where the shroud is, for clearance for the shroud, and I've sorted out everything I've got going on here. You could probably tell I'm a little bit rushed. I literally have to finish this, what I'm doing here, lock up the shed, go pack a bag, have a shower and fly to Perth. So I am a little bit rushed on this one, sorry. I've left this last minute again, but that's enough for this video. I've got the plumbing done. It's a major step on the car. It might not seem like it, but that's a big thing for me. It's a big job. I probably could have done it quicker, but I changed my mind a few times. Even the next job I'm doing, I've been overthinking that for the last 3 days. So that's the car stuff. Next video is already recorded. I just need to edit it, and that's on the F700 that's sitting outside. For those of you that follow me on Instagram, you'll already know what's going on with that thing. But so I'm pretty happy about where that is at the moment. So that's the next video. So 2 other things. I've been thinking about t-shirts again. I've got more subscribers now. Thanks for joining, guys. There's 4,000 of you plus, and I'm still struggling to fathom that. But thank you. I've been talking to a guy about doing t-shirt designs, maybe one for the Coupe and one for the F100 or the trucks. So I'm not too sure on this. I'm still working through that, but I am looking at doing those because I would like to put some out just to say thank you to you guys. The other thing, so I was at a concert recently in Adelaide, a carnival concert, and it'd been a long weekend. I was pretty shot. It was loud and I was tired. I had earplugs in. I got tapped on the shoulder by a young couple that said, "Are you Phil? We watch your videos. We're fans. We love your cars." I was hoping to catch up with you guys afterwards. I feel like I kind of brushed you off and I feel really bad about that, but I did want to catch up with you guys and say hello. So if you could message me on Instagram or something and let me know who you guys are, because I'd like to say hello. And thanks for that. That's sort of, I still don't know how to deal with that when people come up and say we watch your videos. Again, blows my mind. But I'll leave this one here before I talk too much. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for the new subscribers. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all of you guys. I hope you're all doing well. I will talk to you real soon.